Hey, welcome back to another Debut Diaries. I know I missed a month, but I didn't have anything going on. Maybe I should have made a Debut Diaries called When You're a Soon-to-be Published Author and You Don't Really Have Anything Going On. But I have recently finished my line edits, and so I thought I would do this dedicated video talking all about that experience. Though of course I have talked about it in some vlogs. I'll link at least one over here and I'll link the rest of them down there so you can check those out as well. But this is going to be really specific targeted video about my experience doing line edits with an editor at a publishing house for the first time. First, what are line edits? So line edits are very specific pointed comments from your editor. So developmental or big picture edits are really larger scale edits. You'll get an edit letter and there will be a lot of things you have to fix that require more action on your part. Line edits are really very specific pointed things. They can be things like your grammar, your comma use. They can be things like if you're an international author, making sure that you're using the right spellings for your publisher. Things like inconsistencies. So if you mention something up in the beginning and then you say something different about it later on, catching those sorts of things. Also making notes of things that are unnecessary. If you are repeating information too much and you don't need it. If you're overusing words that you need to switch it up. If you are doing those sorts of things. They're very, very pointed, very specific. And this is different from copy editing. Copy editing is done by a copy editor and they're really checking for things like house style, like making sure you're following the style of your publishing house. And their job is very specifically like grammar and inconsistencies. Whereas your line edit is done by your editor. It's done by someone that knows your story really, really well. And they're doing some things that the copy editor are doing, like the grammar and stuff, but they're also doing even more than that. They're also questioning your characters and like, this happens up here, and so why is this character doing this thing down here? But they're changes that you can make relatively quickly. So they wouldn't require you, for example, to like write a whole new chapter or like move a whole scene around. It's things that you can kind of fix by like adding a couple lines here and there or taking out lines here and there. So it really is at the inline level. How I went about doing my line edits. So I had the experience of also doing my sensitivity reader edits at the same time as my line edits. So my editor bundled those together so that she and my sensitivity readers could read my latest draft at the same time. So that way they were getting the most up-to-date draft. And they didn't have huge comments that came back in the end. They really were still line level edits. And so I was able to go through those. So the first thing I did was I tackled my bigger items, so bigger things that my editor had called out, and then also my sensitivity reader edits. So I just jumped through the document. I didn't do it any like particular chronological way. I just went back through all my sensitivity reader notes and I jumped through the document. I made those changes. One sensitivity reader, they were larger changes, and so I actually ended up contacting him again and asking if he could look over everything another time, if he had time for that. I did pay for that work. It was extremely affordable. And that way I could get his feedback again because I had added like 3 or 4 new paragraphs of content and I wanted to make sure that in that edition I hadn't messed anything up essentially. And also that it made sense to him and that it felt accurate of his experience. So that was the first thing I did. He got back to me really fast and he was like moving and everything. So awesome. He got back to me super quickly and I was able to get those edits done. And then I started tackling the larger edits that my editor had pointed out. One I ended up putting off because it was towards the end anyway, and I figured it would be better to just do that chronologically. So after I tackled those bigger edits, I then started going through the manuscript chronologically. I set myself 3 chapters a day to go through because that felt reasonable to me, and I was able to get that done on a regular basis. I finished my line edits in about 2 weeks. So then it was just kind of just going through the document chronologically. Something else I did is that my editor pointed out some words that I was using too frequently, like pinched expression and like twisted lips, and I was describing my love interest by his eye color too often. And so those, I used the search function in Microsoft Word and had it highlight in a different color all of those instances, so that as I was going through, I could see them as they came up, not only when my editor pointed them out, and I could decide if that really needed to be there or not. Once I had gone through the whole document, I had some questions about my editor's questions, and so I answered those in the document using the reply to comment function. And then what I did was I sent her an email and I noted all the page numbers of the comments that I had. I actually fucked up the page numbers so that it didn't even work. I felt so bad for her. But anyway, that's what I had done, and I'd sent that to her. And then she essentially went back in and she replied inline comments to it if it was like short. And for things that were larger, she replied to me in the email. And then we had like a back and forth discourse in the email to chat more about it. And then I went in and I did those final changes pretty fast, and then line edits were over. And that was essentially the process of how I went through them and how I structured going through those edits. Now, how was my overall experience doing line edits? I think in doing line edits, I really became aware of just how on the ball my editor is. My editor is Sarah McCabe at Simon & Schuster. She is wonderful. Every process of the editing has been great with her. She like points out so many good things, but in line edits, it like really shone, like there were so many inconsistencies she had pointed out, things that I hadn't even thought of, suggestions she made that were so on point. And she's like one of those people that will call you out on your weird mistake, on your weird thing that you've done. Like sometimes I do edits and it's like kind of like a shitty out, and I low-key know it's a shitty out, but I still do it because I suck. And she was fine with being like, this is kind of a shitty out. And I was like, yes, it is. Thank you for calling me on it, and I will fix it. But I really just understood how good she is at her job because of how many things that she had caught and so many things that she had paid attention to that even I had like flitted out of my mind. And the fact that she holds all that information about my book along with all the other books she's working on is just amazing. Like I'm super, super amazed by that. And so that was something I was blown away by. I also realized something about myself in that I frequently overcomplicate things. There were things that would come up and my solution to the line edit would be so complicated, and Sarah would come in and she'd be like, why don't you just do this, because this is actually really simple. And I'd be like, that works so much better than what I was trying to do, which was ridiculously complicated. So that was something I learned about myself. I also learned that line edits are my least favorite part of the process. They are the worst. I don't know what it is about it. I think because it's so nitpicky, and nitpicky edits are like my least favorite type of edits. That's why when I send to CPs and beta readers, I only have them comment on big picture things. I hate getting nitpicky. Like I just don't like it. And so line edits were so exhausting for me. 3 chapters a day was doable, and it only would take me like an hour, maybe 2 hours at most to do, but I would be so tired after that I like could not do anything else. They were just that exhausting for me. That was just my personal experience with them. I think sometimes other people just breeze through them. They have no problem, but for me, it's just so painful. So painful. So that was my experience with that. Something I also learned, which I didn't know until I started asking people around. This is the insider information of Debut Diaries. But if your advance is, the way your advance is set up is that you get paid upon delivery and acceptance of your manuscript. I didn't know when delivery and acceptance was like when that was a thing. And it is when your editor sends your book to copy edits most frequently. So that was the experience of a lot of debuts I talked to, and that was also my experience. I didn't know until I contacted someone and I was like, when will I be paid again? So when your editor you finish your line edits and your editor sends it off to copy edits, that's considered delivered and accepted. In many cases, for the people that I talk to. I don't want to act like that's a universal because I don't truly know, but that is like the common experience that I heard from people. is that's when it's considered accepted, and that's when you get paid again. So that was something wonderful I learned, and soon I will be paid again, which is awesome because I'm unemployed. That's it for this episode of Debut Diaries. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to me already, please subscribe. In the description, I'll also have the playlist link to the rest of my Debut Diaries episodes if you want to watch all of those other ones. If you have any questions for me, please post them in the comments and I will help to the best of my ability talking about my experience. And yeah, that's it, really. I thought there was something else to say, but there isn't. So I already did the thumbs up and subscribe. So that's the end of this video, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!